to Heart Nation. I'm your humble host, Zakariya Adeel, and unfortunately today there is no Shiva Das because she is not feeling very well, so she's given us her apologies, and she will be here with us next time. So today we are looking at, is peace a realistic possibility? Why are we looking at this as a topic? So with all of the things that have been in the press recently about Palestine war, the Ukrainian war, it just got me to thinking, I don't know anybody that actually wants war, that everybody that I know wants peace. So why don't we have peace? The more I thought about it, the more depressed I got, and I thought, okay, no, I've got to take a positive approach to this. So yeah, but having a positive approach means you don't think about it, you stay focused on the solution. The solution is what? Peace, right? So why don't we have peace? What can we do to create peace? This was my starting point. Is peace a realistic possibility? Got me to thinking. I think it is, but there's a lot of things that we have to do. There's a lot of things we have to see, and there's a lot of things we have to untangle before we get there. So my personal belief is that peace is a realistic possibility, but we're going to have a discussion on that with our panel today. So, without further ado, let me introduce to you our guests. Naeem, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So let's get the labels out of the way. Naeem Mahmood. I'm a film director. Been doing that for 20 plus years. And when I'm not doing that, I'm doing a lot of outreach work, a lot of activism, and just trying to put out positive energy where I can, and try to become the better version of myself. And that's a little nutshell of where I'm at.
I saw your film in London a few weeks back, and it's a very unusual film because it's not a conventional film, but it was unique in so many ways, which maybe we can talk about that a bit later. Mm-hmm. But I just want to say congratulations for getting that on. An unusual film, a non-conformative film that you got into a massive London venue, so congratulations.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.
Ash, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I'm Naeem's brother. And what am I? Who am I? I'm still trying to discover who I am. Which I think is very fundamental.
That's going to take up the whole podcast, that is.
Trying to find out a little bit more about who I am, which I think a lot of people, if they're honest with themselves, don't really know themselves. So I'm hoping to work out how to bring about peace in myself, which I think that I can extend to other people as well. And I teach science to young girls from age 11 to 18, which is takes up the bulk of my time. It's where a lot of my energy goes. And I make films as well. I've set up a national social archive called Planet Uplift, which I started because a lot of people that I was meeting had a lot of stories to tell, and the phone wouldn't stop ringing, and people wanted to tell their stories, and so I filmed them to tell their stories, particularly those people who have been silenced over the last 3 years for various different reasons. So that's really built up. So that's pretty much me, really.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the panel today.
Pleasure.
Science teacher as well. So maybe some trust the science in there, possibly.
The more I learn in life, the less I know. The more I study and the more I open up this book and talk to these people, the more I realise that I don't really know much. And there's a great expression, I think a Greek philosopher said, the only thing I know is I know nothing.
Was that Socrates?
You'll have to check that one up. I can't be certain if it was, although I've heard that it might be Socrates.
Okay. So moving on, this is one of our two returning guests. This is Nacho. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, my name is Nacho, one of the founders of a group named Stand Up X, which was founded, on May the 2nd, 2020, at the beginning of one of the first lockdowns introduced in the UK. We found this group in order to oppose the government's regime and agenda and try to expose the truth behind their intentions with the COVID pandemic situation. So I've been very involved in activism and building the movement and the momentum of the people or souls in the world that realize what's really occurring and we've managed to build a massive network of hundreds of thousands. Like I say, we started with 20 people a year later, which I think everyone here has been on the mass marches where there's hundreds of thousands of us together, marching for the truth and for our future and for our freedom. So yeah, I'm excited to delve into the next phase of this journey, and I think we have an opportunity at this point in time to construct a better existence for everyone in the world and expose the 1% and their sinister agenda. So,
a true legend.
Thank you, Nacho. And Nicola, thank you for returning as well.
Thank you for having me. So I'm an artist and healer. Been doing healing work in one form or another since about 2008. And through art, sort of spiritual type of art. And I suppose that kind of way of looking at the world has sort of led me to be more questioning perhaps, and sort of led me into the path of, you know, awakened movement, where I've met some of you in this room. So yeah, so that's me principally, and also interested in kind of anything anomalous, so anomaly hunters kind of lifestyle really, sort of going around looking at old historic sites, earth energies, you know, investigating earth mysteries, that kind of thing. So yeah, it just is a pleasure to come together with a group like this, like-minded souls, you know, putting the pieces of the jigsaw together to see what we can figure out.
Developing solutions.
We should do something with the dowsing later, like at some point.
Yeah, that would be good.
Next year, let's do a video on dowsing, because I think that's really interesting.
Really interesting topic. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to the actual conversation topic, which is peace a realistic possibility? So here's a question, right? I know it's big, but like back in the day, when we were living in tribes and tribal society, do you think peace was a normal way of life? Like, what do you think? Because everybody was separated in small groups, and so a small tribe might have had a conflict with another small tribe, but because there were small groups of people, they could discuss it and they could sort it out, and if not, maybe they fought. But it wasn't like what's happening now, these huge scale wars. But do you think that at that time there was more peace compared to what we have now?
I think I was talking to a group of Native American Indian people recently, and they assured me that was very much the case. That they didn't have this concept of government. They didn't have this concept of hierarchy. They had some people who were wise elders, but they didn't have this idea of government. So no one really governed anybody. People governed themselves.
And a monetary system as well, which I think is a massive factor and contributes to so much disharmony.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they didn't have such a system, and pretty much everything seems to be, from what they've said, is very, very different. And there were different tribes and people living in different regions, but they would resolve their issues. So we've been led to believe, because most of history's been completely rewritten by those who are currently running or pretending to be running the world. It's all an illusion, because really we will have the power, but they've made us believe that we don't. But I think really, I think that all of these, talking to them, I do get the sense that the difficulties that they had amongst themselves could be resolved, and that they weren't really at war with each other, and there were hardly any skirmishes of any kind. But again, what we've been told is that they were always warring, and I think that they were far more advanced than we could ever dream of. When you actually look at it in more detail, some of the stuff they did is just phenomenal, really. You know, and you look at other civilizations across the world, and you visit them, and you don't hear much about them. But for example, the Indus civilization, and they developed irrigation to such an advanced level. And then people talk about the pyramids. You know, what were they there for? We've been told there's just some lovely, beautiful structure, or to keep some treasures inside. But you know, when you look at Nikola Tesla, apparently he spent most of his life convinced and trying to understand that these buildings were used as a resource of free energy. And so there's so much that's been hidden from us. But I mean, you know, I walk around every day. We live in a big city of 8 million. We read the newspapers, and you get a very bad impression that it's there's all this gun crime and knife crime and there's unrest, even just in London. And when we had the whole, the fake pandemic and lockdown and all this stuff, you never heard one story about any knife crime or gun crime. And I've been, I work with youth all my life. And I must be honest, hardly ever do you see any serious issues. You see once in a while, but it's generally walk around and you talk about peace. I think we're living in peace overall. We're not really warring with each other here, at least in London, to a great degree. So I think, again, a lot of the stuff is manufactured to make us believe that we're far more at war with each other than at peace.
That's very interesting as a perspective, because I don't think you find very many people with that sort of perspective that actually maybe we already have peace, but we just don't think of it in that way. So that is interesting.
To some degree. I think the biggest problem we all have as individuals is that we're not at peace with ourselves. So we're walking around with anxiety and tension, and that sometimes comes to the surface and we reflect it on other people. We get angry sometimes, or get upset, cry, and lose our... I see it every day with kids in our school, but it's completely understandable because they're bombarded with so much junk and rubbish to worry about. It's coming from the schooling system, this test. And I'll tell you how ridiculous it is. I have a group of kids, they've just done a test on the end of topic, whatever that is. It happened to be energy. They've just done that end of term exam, and then they've got an end of topic test, which is exactly the same thing. So they've just done one test, and they've been asked to do that same test again, literally.
What do you think the reasoning is behind that? What is the excuse by the designers of the curriculum to... What do you think the real intention is behind that? To cause unnecessary stress in the students, or to have them more conditioned to be constantly tested? Or
what is the purpose of test? You have to ask yourself, and I think any test, blood test, COVID test, is all to cause anxiety. Really? I think that's the purpose of it.
And what is the purpose of schooling and the so-called education system? True. That's what you got to look at, and I think that's something that's not looked at enough, particularly within perhaps the what you call the freedom movement, because the schooling system is one of the early sort of things that have been put in place to sort of push people into the direction where many of us are at now, conditioning them in a certain way. Schools are not designed to set up and empower you and bring out the best in you. I think anyone with half a brain cell can see that. It's killing potential. It's taking away their strength, bombarding them with the crap that you say. So already earlier on, the power is taken away from a lot of the youngsters, and then the anxiety kicks in, and the lack of peace maybe within themselves is already under attack. And that comes from the so-called education system and the schooling system, where a lot of the big problems lie from earlier on.
I think schools and educational establishments, they're like indoctrination centres, really, aren't
to put it politely,
And it's like, as soon as you go into the schooling system, you feel like you're being herded into this sort of like track, and you can't deviate from that. You're not taught to critically think. You're not told to problem solve. You're not given any of the skills that you would get in a tribal society. You'd be learning how to respect your elders. You'd be perhaps given an initiation ceremony where you come into your manhood or your womanhood. There would be these stages that you would go through that would develop the soul and develop the person, the whole person. Whereas in school, it's just, here's the facts, here's the accepted norm of what we want you to see, our version of events, and this is what we want you to drill into you, so that you only think that that's correct, and you're going to say that to everybody else.
Programming.
And as soon as somebody comes along and says something that's different to that, that's anomalous to that, then you're just going to put, oh no, that's not what we were taught. That's not the official line. So it's that whole, it's just all the way through school that's happening. We've all been subjected to that, haven't we?
Yes,
when you
absolutely.
find out that we're not the most advanced that we've ever been, like you're saying about the pyramids and these other forms of technology that people are exposing, that's coming to light now, and they're doing, new forms of scans and technology. And for example, there's a European Space Agency did a scan from a satellite of the pyramid complex and found 20 new voids within the Great Pyramid. And it sort of lines up with the physics that they've done to show that it's actually a power plant, that it could be a form of creating power. So that's such a mind-blowing concept, isn't it? That 2,000-3,000 or more years ago, that we actually were more advanced than, we're not in this linear progression of this churchy progress that we think we started as cavemen and then we've slowly and look at us now with our Strike toothpaste and mobile phones, we're the most advanced we've ever been. Actually we've been through big, changes, and, we've had technology, lost it, got it back again, and, as Graham Hancock's famous for saying, got
Species with amnesia.
Species with amnesia, yeah.
But see, when they say that the victors write the books,
yeah.
So if they get to write the books, then are they suppressing this information?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? Basically, it's being suppressed, so that we don't know what the technology that is available.
And the empowering technology that would put the power back in our hands, that we wouldn't need to pay through the nose for our energy bills. If we had a Tesla system.
Free energy. It's free energy that's accessible at any time to anyone.
That we've known about for at least 100 years. It's been suppressed.
It's probably been around for much
longer. What do we do with
longer.
that excess money? And everybody would be free to not have to worry about their bills anymore. So it's power, putting power.
Well, wouldn't that be interesting if everybody had the wherewithal to live in the way that they want to? What would they do with their time? They would probably be more creative, would probably be more artistic. The vibration will just naturally be higher. Who knows what we would create with that sort of society?
I was thinking about one of the origins of violence, because if we're talking about peace, then what's the opposite to peace? Is it violence? And where does violence come from? Violence comes from, I think the main motivator for that, poverty. I know there's obviously crimes of passion and people get emotional, but I think the biggest factor and contributor to the loss of peace or to violence is poverty. And it's all set up in a way where humanity is, the resources are harboured by the 1%, and it's not equally distributed, and the technologies that can advance us in a fair way are hoarded and suppressed by the systems that run everything.
And trauma, I think trauma also is another part, because the poverty creates, because sometimes in schooling, there's all these different things that we have now. Yeah, it causes the trauma in the system, and then in that person's system, sometimes it can have destructive repercussions. So people develop personality disorders or personality styles that aren't conducive to peace.
And those younger years are your real formative years, going into the nurseries and schools and then college, uni. And it's clear to me that they're already been trained to serve that very corrupt system, to become cogs in that very wheel, and all of that, and to serve it, to hold those corrupt institutions up and aspire to be part of those institutions. And all of that key sort of developmental time is lost, where they could be developed into much more empowered beings, strength, how you put yourself across, love, compassion, unity, solidarity, courage, all of those things. In those years, that's where it should be instilled, is not at all. So, the potential is killed, and they're serving that very system that's crushing them, but little do they know it, that's part of the programming.
It goes back to the American Indian philosophies, because I don't remember the exact quote, but the children, again, the American Indians really talk about the importance of children having fun when they learn. And I could be very frank with you that my head teacher made a speech a couple of months ago and said, we don't want the children to come to school to have fun. Now, you tell me which way you want to go, because I prefer the American Indian ideals. So I would rather look to them to find our solutions. They used to put the children, when the children were sick, they used to put them in the earth, because the earth has all these electrons, provides so much energy, and they put them there to help them to recover. Yeah. And we're wearing rubber soles.
Rubber soles on purpose.
Nike, and Nike's part of the agenda, because they're making people get jabbed if they're going to work with them. So and we were still behind that.
And as a child, most people the kids are wearing nappies, and you'll carry your shit within you, you know, which should be let out, you know what I mean? And how are people going to be at peace when you're already as a kid, you know, got your shit just, you know, trapped in there in a nappy? It's just all unnatural stuff that is just not.
You don't really give it a second thought now that you've even mentioned that.
Kids. I mean, parents are treating kids like an animal. They put them on the leash.
And they give them the iPad to just be numbed and dumbed down and hypnotized.
The moment you come into the world, you're already injected with crap, shite, chemicals and God knows what, and you're seeing a face mask straight away in a hospital or whatever as you come out, you know. And so already very early on, the bombardment begins. But that's not to say that we don't have the power to turn that all around.
I do sometimes wonder, what is the objective? Those very early vaccinations that they give to those children, what is that doing to their system? Obviously, we know that potentially it can lead to autism and all these other things. But I'm wondering, why do they need to inject them immediately? What is it doing to that child?
Could be energetic,
the
fear and the pain that is caused by this baby that's
destabilized, brutalized,
that's just been incarnated on this earth. Immediately the system is going into their bloodstream. You know what I mean? Like the energetic aspect of it.
Because look how powerful we're powerful as beings. We're incredibly powerful. We've got everything within us to push the limitations beyond limitation.
And as baby, this
so you're completely
must be really powerful.
So straight away,
immediately
bring them down, bombard them.
Cut the umbilical cord. How negative is it to cut the umbilical cord and the power of the lotus birth if you keep the umbilical cord attached?
That's your knife crime right there, straight away.
And the parent just has to do it. Usually the father has to come along and, hey, we give you the power to cut. And you're the abuser.
How many people are aware of this information?
That's interesting.
You know, and we believe, this is such a horrible thing.
You're kind of harming your baby for the sake of the system. The system is telling you to harm the baby and you just obey.
I've never heard of this before. They could do that. They could leave the umbilical cord.
I never knew this until a year ago or so. I've never heard of that.
That makes sense.
So beneficial. The stem cells.
It detaches.
Yeah, it naturally dries and breaks off.
With a natural
nutrients in there
birth,
too, I think.
there wouldn't be somebody there with a scissor waiting.
That's why they say eat the placenta. They say eat the placenta because that's what you're meant to leave attached to the baby so it can absorb all the stem cells and all the vibrance and support its immune system, but immediately sever that, inject it with all these things. Like you say, the authority, the doctor there in a mob, it's twisted. The more you think about it, it's deep.
It starts very early on. That's where a lot of our focus needs to lie if we're going to make progression.
Is it just I mean, you could look at it as dark and sinister, or you could think we've just become so detached from the earth, Mother Earth, and the nurturing and how everything happens naturally within the human body. We've got it, like you were saying,
Absolutely.
we've got it all within us. We've got the ability to do so much more than we realise we can. We're not using all that junk DNA, they're calling junk, which isn't junk. You know, we could be really, if we had that time and we had that energy to nurture ourselves and our consciousness and to expand, you know, with art and with, you know, these other sides of the right brain that we're not taught to nurture and use. You know, people just don't know what we're capable of, and I think that's the thing. They think they're doing a good thing by following the doctor's recommendations. They're just being funneled into this. I mean, my parents sent me for vaccinations, you know, because they thought they were doing a good thing, you know, and it's just, we just have become so much divorced. And going back to what you were saying at the beginning about the tribal cultures, we're so far away from that. We have no concept of what they're doing and doing perfectly. You know, you don't see tribal women complaining about the menopause, for example. I mean, they have ways of dealing with that.
Morally and ethically, they're just so much more advanced than we are today.
But also, I've heard of women in their 60s who still have eggs.
Yeah.
You know, so who knows? It could be, who knows what's causing all of this?
Oh, chemtrails, GMO, all the pharmaceuticals,
vaccinations on birth,
all of these things.
Cutting off the umbilical cord. Who knows what impact that could have on the child if they didn't cut that and just let the nutrients spoil it. Maybe we have more access to our psychic abilities. Maybe we are more. Maybe
the fluoride disconnecting your pineal, calcifying your pineal gland. No meditation, no nurturing of these abilities that we have, no meditation.
And then the chemicals and the crap they put in the food, the synthetic food, the crap media bombarding you as well, and the phones and TikToks and all of this stuff. It's a deluge to really kill the potential and not empower human beings. And if we just come back to the agenda and we look at the anti-human control system, first of all, what's one of the things they want to do, or one of the things they don't want? They don't want a healthy, strong, confident, really educated population, right? So very clearly what they want to do, therefore, is to destabilize us, bring us down. So that makes it very clear what we need to do. We need to bring out the peace, is to really get ourselves in optimal condition, mentally, physically, and that energy in itself goes out into the ocean and starts to create more peace. Whereas if you're stressed and you're negative and you're the shell of yourself, that energy is going out into the ocean.
And projecting that.
Yeah, projecting that completely. And it's infectious. You feel it when someone walks into a room and they've got a bad attitude or a bad aura about them. You feel it straight away, and it kind of, it's infectious, the real virus, but if we can become the better versions of ourselves, we start putting out better energy, and then you're getting closer to perhaps the peace that you talk about. Not to say that the peace doesn't exist already, because I experience a lot of peace more on a regular basis now than ever before.
Energy is the currency of life, is it? That's everything. And I think whatever they've tried to do, because they've done a lot, all these things you've mentioned, isn't it, the chemtrails, but they've really failed by and large, because despite all of this attack on humanity, the kids still are aware. Nearly all the kids in my school are clued up. Even the ones who are really quiet and look like they're studying hard and following the agenda, they come to me and say, this is all nonsense. And I say, I'm not wearing my lanyard. They actually have to wear lanyards.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah, it's very encouraging.
Well, during the whole COVID thing,
it's innate. It's innate.
Yeah, it is innate, because during the whole COVID thing, the young kids in the early teens, 13s, 14, were the ones that were calling it the clock shop, weren't they? So they knew that. So many kids that I know didn't want to take the vaccination, even though the parents had. So there is something happening here, and maybe you can't really be disconnected. You can only be, maybe you can be tethered further away, but you can't be disconnected from your.
I think they're having to work harder and harder at it, actually, because if you look at the work of people like Dolores Cannon, when she's talked about the waves of volunteers, the people that are coming and being incarnated on the earth are more and more consciously aware each time. So the kids that are coming in are so switched on, they're so wired for spirituality and consciousness that they can tell they've got that innate in them. So I think it's getting more difficult for the powers that were to do these things.
I think that's why they needed such a drastic, we were talking about this earlier, drastic extreme situations such as COVID, in order to disconnect us, because they knew we were evolving spiritually. It was getting more, they couldn't continue this with having the normal kind of regime that they have. We would have evolved past it. It's like, we need this extreme situation in order to stop their evolution, because they're cropping
and
onto
they shot
things,
themselves in the foot, because what have they done? They've brought people like us together, finding each other. You've had to literally go
strengthened us.
They've actually brought us together, because everyone's like, my friends, my family don't understand me. I think I'm a lunatic. So you have to go out and find like-minded people. And what happens when you get like-minded people?
We created our own tribe. This is another tribe.
We don't know all family
tribe.
But even the so-called, let's say, non-awake people are my tribe too. The so-called non-awake people are my tribe. I connect with them as well. When I was making the film that you spoke about, pretty much everyone on that film, about 200 people or so, were all non-awake people. But when we got together and got creative in that period of 2020, all of that got forgotten. It was just working together, being creative together, our natural state, and we were all vibing and gelling. And for me, there's no division there really, of course, and that's something.
Well, that's something we were talking about before. Is that actually the biggest plan is to stop unification from happening. Is to what's the word? Breaking them down, fragment, polarize. Polarize everybody, breaking everybody down, make everybody have something angry to say to each other, disagree with each other,
and divide and rule.
Divide and conquer. That whole thing. One thing I was going to say to you earlier was. There is that scientific concept, isn't there, that if there's an action somebody takes, it has the opposite and equal reaction. So when they tried to disconnect us through COVID, it ended up uniting people instead because of the scientific physics principle.
And let's say that those people are operating, the kids, the adults, whoever, and they're operating, let's say, on 10% of their potential, and they've been able to make these strides that they have. Imagine if they're able to operate on much higher levels. I mean, it's game over. If they can really understand what the bombardment is and deal with that, push that back, and become the better versions of themselves, then you start really becoming powerful within and being able to deal with this darkness that's around us a lot easier.
Do you think that there is a energetic push to get people more connected? Because it feels like as we're heading towards this Aquarian age, more and more people, this is what I'm perceiving anyway, are becoming more connected to their higher selves and are becoming more sort of open-minded to things and to life and all of that. So I feel like actually we're heading in the right direction, and that 10% is going to become 20%, 30%, 40%. And the children, as they grow up, because of the energetic push to make them more awakened and make them more connected, I think that we're heading in a good direction here.
Yes. Whether we are, though, or we're not, first and foremost, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 5% or 10%. And this is sometimes looking at, maybe they'll wake up and they're going to wake up and they first wake yourself up. That's got to be the first and foremost focus for me. Before even, when I was on the outreach, the marches, it was absolutely the right thing to do. But now for me, the evolution, having gone through all of that, is to first look to self and embody everything that you want to see in this world. And that in itself will have a ripple effect. I've experienced that myself.
Lead by example.
It's straight away. And you don't, when you do that, and you embody that fully, but put in the work and the discipline required to do that, that has an effect without you even having to try and say, why is he not waking up? Why should wake that person like that? It will automatically wake from that energetical connection. I've experienced that in my own life in recent times.
That goes back to what we were saying off camera to start with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we're all out there trying to fight the big bad wolf out there, but really it starts
within.
in here.
We are the big bad wolves. Our biggest enemy is ourselves.
We've got dark inside.
We are very, and we can only. I think love is also very important, and I think it was Jimi Hendrix's quote is a very nice one. He said that the love of power must be overcome by the power of love. And then we can get to peace. And the peace starts within us, because a lot of us, I said, we're not at peace with ourselves, because everything's externalized. This illusion, this 5 sense illusion. This is like a film, really, but it's a 5 sense film, because we're here for a short time, then we're gone. And many of us, we don't know where we're going next. But it's not the end of us. This body might be finished, but we know that something's left that body. The energy can never be destroyed. So we're definitely still around in another form, but this life is just an illusion. It feels so real. Like a film, you go to watch a film, it's only 2 senses, right? 2 senses you feel, but then you can get really emotional, you can cry leaving the film, but it's just not real, right?
Or the virtual reality headset, it feels so real. But it's not body is the headset, we're born with that headset, so it feels so real to us.
So this is just this temporary thing. So what we've got to get ourselves in order is going inside. We don't meditate, we don't spend... People laugh when I talk about meditation. Oh, I'd have to sit like the guru and do this and that. And say, no, you don't have to do all that stuff. It's just about silencing yourself and just getting away, because everything we're bombarded with, all the stimulation. Kids are bombarded with supermarket and this colour and Cinderella and Walt Disney and hundreds of other distractions. It's all taking you away from. And that's why I said to you earlier that I didn't know who I was till very recently. I didn't know who I was. I was really at an uncomfortable place in my life. And it's
come a long way.
And it's just about trying to spend a little bit of time on your own and just observing, because I think all we're here for is to observe, to love, and then we move on to the next, wherever the next realm is, And I think that's what it really boils down to, is if you want peace, you've got to find peace within yourself. And then you've won the war, because the war is not against other people. The war is only with yourself. Yes. And when you get that peace, I'm telling you, you start radiating this peace to others, and people can feel it, and no harm can come to, I'm convinced that no harm can come to anyone around you if you're in that wonderful feeling of energetic love and peace.
So how did you get there? And what was you don't have to share your story if you don't want to, but like, how did you go from where you were to this peace-emanating person that you are now?
I mean, I can't fully. I'm blessed. Something happened. Something just happened. I mean, it's very difficult to pinpoint it. It's evolving. It's not complete. It's just the beginning. But I'm just very blessed that there are energetic powers out there that have taken care of me throughout most of my life. That it just happened. But it really some funny things have happened. If I start telling people, they start laughing and think I'm the crazy one, you know. But I think we live in an asylum of lunatics anyway. They've made us loony, but we can find our way out of that lunacy.
I've seen firsthand Ash get rid of some of that corruption within, and then after that, the impact you've had on people has been tenfold compared to what it was before. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, it's been definitely a real. I mean, it's really sad what's happened around us, what's happening around us. When you read, we try not to read. That's one of the big things we've got to do. Is we've got to not just turn off the TV, because TV is not the big problem now. It's the social media. Can we get off our phones? Because I still don't know hardly anyone who can. It's so difficult. They got us in some way or another, isn't it? And I think that social media and tech and these shapes. This is very inhuman. All this rectangular shape
and the head like that.
Yeah, walking around unaware of, again, taking us away from the observation we should be making about the trees and the lovely nature. And,
being in the present.
Yeah, there's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday. There's only right now, isn't it? We don't even think about right now. We're thinking about what we'll do tomorrow. Oh no, I want this to happen, you know.
Or what happened in the past.
Yeah, and that's all in our head. There is no tomorrow, there's no yesterday. There's only right this minute.
Yeah,
We've got to treasure it.
Being in the present, isn't
Present,
it?
yes.
And I'm guessing that when you sort of had that awakening, that spiritual awakening, that it was because somewhere inside you found that greater connection with the higher self.
Yes, it was
And
always there.
That's where it is, isn't it? Because
Yes.
our higher selves is like the biggest, broadest version of who we are, isn't it? And it's so simple just to breathe and just to connect and just meditate and just make that intention to connect with the higher self. And then suddenly you find the synchronicities and you find that, you know, you have a download and then a book comes to you and then you read that book and it validates your download and then you're making steps along this path and then you randomly meet people and then things happen and then it's amazing.
Yes, and then it's not random anymore, isn't it?
It's more amazing than looking at a device or tuning into Netflix and zoning out.
A sense of purpose and alignment, and it just makes sense. Things just flow. It just works. It's incredible.
There's that vibration within us, and it's just so amazing. We wish that everybody could have that experience.
And Nacho is someone who's typified that for me with the energy he's put out. He created this incredible reality that brought so many people together, and that must have stemmed from some clarity or some power, that power that we talk about, that we all have. And that is a living example right there from, you know, just a few people, and how that, against all the odds and the most difficult conditions, made such an impact for hundreds of thousands, if not millions, globally.
And how quickly it happened as well.
And
yeah.
that's, I think, a story, a whole podcast in itself.
Just the sense of purpose and drive and the combination of different people working together towards that unified objective. We can change the world. We can achieve anything that we set our minds to, especially when we learn to harness our collective energy and work cohesively together. And we saw that. We saw the growth and the achievement of going from 20 people to 1 million people. I always go back to that fact because that is a feat. That's a feat and a half, and it is what sends. It's what terrifies the system and the agenda. Having that presence and that unity of people from every walk of life, every religion, every race, every socio-economic background, just the most diverse selection of individuals you could ever meet, all there present together for that one objective: the truth, our freedom, our future,
And peace.
and peace, and peace.
So we're all free, aren't we? We're all free, really. They've given this illusion we have to attain it.
Or that we're not peaceful, you know, that it still hasn't been attained. There's many times where we're at peace. I'm at peace when I'm in my garden, relaxing, spending time myself and with my partner and within and switching off from everything. That's a peace within itself. And going back on an individual level as well. What is it they don't, what they're terrified of as well are strong individuals with that clarity of thought, mind, being in the present, all of those things that we're talking about. That's the last thing they want. They want us beaten down, stressed and mashed up, ill, always go to the NHS and get more pharma crap within you and beaten down.
But your
So if
TV
you
license,
know that,
you know what you're going to get.
we therefore know
absolute
what
fine,
to
isn't
do.
it? Or some other letters coming, you have to do.
But you can deal with that better, but you can deal with that adversity better, let's say the fines coming your way and all this stuff, when you're in better mental, physical condition. When you're not in great condition, you don't often deal with those things as well.
When you just mentioned the NHS there and the doctors, it's
The
something
National Death Service.
I suddenly thought that when we were talking about the mobile phones and everything, how social media, it got me to thinking that actually these phones emit a certain energy that destroys our vibration.
Absolutely.
Impacts our vibration. So when we're high vibration, we're meditated, we're vibrating higher, and they're therefore attracting those synchronistic experiences. But when we have this phone on, it impacts that and disrupts it. Yeah. So, and as do the medications, and as do so many different other things. So I think a lot of it is about that baby that was born. That if left to its own devices and its natural devices, its vibration is going to be huge as a brand new baby into this world. So that's why they inject it with these things, cut the umbilical cords,
And take it away from nature that you were talking about.
All of that's going to impact its vibration.
Yeah.
And I think that every which way we look, the chlorine in the water, the food that we eat, all of it is to reduce that vibration. So, as you said earlier, what they don't want us to do is what we should be focused on. So anything that can raise our vibration is going to encourage that.
Yes.
And I think the topic of this panel podcast is peace a realistic possibility? I was thinking on a more global level, but what we've done here is we've pulled it back into an individual thing. So maybe that is the answer, is the way to achieve global peace is to find individual peace. And
that spreads like a wildfire.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the Mayan calendar stuff that was going on? 2012 is interesting because there was a little known thing. There was a painting by some indigenous people way back, and they had this painting, and it represented two timelines, and it was like, this is the choice point of the Westerners. I think that's how they expressed it, and it was like, on one level you had head and heart together, and on the other path they were showing the head has actually been separated from the heart. And it was like one went forward and came into something that was really, really good globally for everybody, and the other one was just like a very, very bad timeline. So it's interesting that you were saying about, connecting and the vibration, and there is more. I'm getting to hear more and more, and sort of on the downloads that I'm getting and people I know are getting, is that we're going into this kind of bifurcation where we're coming to a choice point where we either focus inwards and connect with our heart centre, which is obviously the way to connect with everything else to do with your higher self and your consciousness, or we just continue down the road of seeing everything as separate from ourselves, that we have to go after these, materialistic attainment, to get things for ourselves, to buy the latest thing, and then that is, the choice point that we're getting to is, either of those two things.
what I find interesting about that is 2012 was Dragon Year, right? So, and that was the end of the Mayan calendar. And here we are, next year is Dragon Year. So we will have done a 12-year cycle. Yeah. We're coming round to that sort of energy point again. So
a lot of different.
But cycle or no cycle, the energy's already there, man. It's whether there is a cycle or there isn't, it's always there within you, that energy.
Yeah, and maybe because we're hearing about this a lot, maybe it is another psyop type thing as well. Every time I get something, I'm always questioning whether that might be another psyop.
What do you mean?
Because all of this stuff that people are getting about this bifurcation, we're in the spiritual community, the astrological community, it is more about separation again, isn't it?
Yes. When we talked, Naeem mentioned very nicely earlier that, same for me, I mean, some of the nicest people throughout this madness are not necessarily just the people who are apparently awake or whatever.
Yeah.
It's people who, my car's about to get damaged. I didn't even know. And the guy said, "Come to my house." He gave me a 25-pound tank of oil and saved my car and saved me. And, he wears the mask and everything. But he's the loveliest fellow, and we're all family. We all make mistakes all our lives. I mean, how many of us can really, hand on heart, say we haven't done things that has followed some agenda? Every day I'm probably switched off and I don't go into my heart and I'm externalizing things. Every moment I've done some mistake not every moment, so every day there'll be something I regret and think, oh, I shouldn't have really done that. Or previously we might have had a different jab long ago, or got scared of HIV, or, there's things that we've always had to face. So, some people are everyone's on a different journey.
Yeah.
So we're not all we're all having different experiences, isn't it? Because everything I see is different to what everyone else sees and what everyone else senses and feels. So none of us are the same or any similar.
Our journey is specifically tailored and individualized for our specific lessons that we need for our evolution.
Exactly. And going back to your earlier point about the whole electromagnetic side of things, that's also very important because we are electrical beings. We send signals electrically. But where there's electricity, there's magnetism, so we're electromagnetic beings. Everything that's around us, we have natural electromagnetism, but then electricity that they've created and generated has clearly, I think, interfered with us. So we should be sitting in candlelight, incandescent light, which is really helpful when there's no sunlight, especially over here in the northern hemisphere in the winter time. We don't get much sun, so we should be then sitting in, natural candlelight, which radiates that kind of soothing energy that actually nourishes our cells, gives us the same kind of energy.
Is there a lack of scientific basis for this?
There's a lot of science that supports that,
isn't it? They outlawed incandescent light bulbs about
halogen.
Halogen made us move into blue light. Everything's blue light now, and that's a different. It's just a different spectrum, and it affects the brain, affects the consciousness.
So the circadian rhythm, your ability to sleep, all that stuff.
Exactly. That's a good point.
I still get my incandescent lights. I order them, so I make sure I still have them. Because I can't handle the other ones. They really make me feel sick.
But the whole physics thing is interesting because there's a guy, Robert Temple, who I'm a big fan of, and he wrote a book recently called The Physics of God, The New Physics of God. And it's about looking at physics from the angle that we never explored. Going back to Tesla, it's like going back 100 years and taking a different path. And he talks about the fifth element, the ether. And physics was looking at the ether, but then they decided not to go down that track. Perhaps it was too empowering for us. So he's kind of bringing this other model back, and he's writing about plasma and about that everything is plasma. And it takes a while to get your head around it, but after a while you're like, this makes perfect sense.
But the Illuminati always tell you that it's there. For example, a cheesy example, I always remember my cheesy examples, last one was Buffy, this time Captain Planet. Do you remember the cartoon Captain Planet?
Bring up something like
I know, but do you remember Captain Planet?
I don't know.
4 elements.
Captain Caveman.
What were the elements? What were the elements? The elements were air, water, fire, earth, and heart. Heart would be symbolic of ether, because there were 5, not 4, right? The Chinese have different elements, but the Western world, we have those 4 elements, and then they also
added. What are Chinese ones?
Chinese are wood, water, metal, earth, and fire.
So there's 5 in the Chinese system.
Yeah. The Chinese system is different. But in the Western world, and in terms of the Illuminati, they will use the four elements, but they know there's 5. And they often call it different things, but it is ether. It is ether, it's heart, it's all connected.
And I think there's a lot
of
answers in
plasma.
that. I think there's a lot of truth in that, and there's a lot that we're missing. It's one of the missing pieces of the puzzle.
But what happens in the show is when those 5 elements come together, it creates Captain Planet.
Oh,
right? So when
the
those
empowered, awakened human being.
That's our generation. But yeah, so
shake, rattle, and roll.
I don't remember that.
Hong Kong Fooey.
Oh,
yeah, I remember
that. You're too young.
No, Simpsons at the end, But it is interesting because they always tell us. There are other examples, even like the Power Rangers, for example. If you sort of look into Power Rangers and what they're doing because again, what do? They unify. It's the same producers, by the way. Oftentimes, it's the same producers that make these types of shows. Anyway, we'll leave that. We're coming back. There was something else I wanted to say. If we've still lived in tribal societies, and I keep trying to remember this, I don't want to forget this. then there would have been a process, or if there was any fights and if there was any problems, what would have happened was that the elders would have got together from both sides, would have had a discussion and would have sorted it out. Because there was systems, there were natural, commonsensical, and also natural human code ways.
The Ubuntu system that they tried, Michael Tellinger tried to bring in, do you remember? And it was Ubuntu, and they'd taken it from the African concept of Ubuntu, where I think they had like 12 or 13 tribal elders, and they would, each one of them would have a period where they would be the arbitrator of like conflicts and things like that, but they'd never stayed there. They'd be there for like 3 months and then somebody else would
This
come
is
along.
an interesting concept that I thought about, sorry.
Yeah, so it's very, go on.
To basically instill a government that is temporary and gets switched out very regularly, so it's like you don't get the chance, how they say power corrupts absolutely and whatever. You don't get a chance to kind of be corrupted. It's just constantly switching out.
Again, we're taught, like even in the British Isles, they talk about those places that were hill forts. They said these were hill forts because back in the day when we were tribal, we were all in conflict and we were all fighting over resources. And yet, they've excavated these sites and there's no signs of warfare. There were ritual centres. There were centres for what? People to come together at certain times of the year that were important for people to come together, to have a ritual together, to share food, to have a party, to look at, what do we need to do for the coming year? How do we, bringing people together in that community sense that we don't have. And unfortunately, it was all an oral history, so we don't have that. But if the further you go back and you look and see what were people doing to organise these tribal societies, if you go back to the Egyptian system, for example, you look at the hieroglyphs, it was all about, yourself, about developing the mind, the physical body, the spirit, and they had mystery school systems. And that's what we don't have now. They outlawed the mystery schooling idea, I don't know, about 2,000 years ago with Christianity. And they were saying, they've got records at the time, they were saying, please don't outlaw this because life will become like death, really, because we don't have this system of enlightenment and how to, and they were using sacred herbs and obviously substances, which people now are rediscovering with
things like ayahuasca.
I think that's why people feel so lost, is because they don't have that.
They don't have
We have
that.
a need for that side of our personalities.
And maybe that's why people are so sort of like conflict and fear-ridden, is because they know there's something else. They sense there's something
missing.
Yeah.
War
and
is
we had that sort of like, it was okay to go, and they tested these old vessels that have got like the wine that you have at the communion or whatever it was, and of course it's got psychedelics in it. So those experiences of of God could have been through these sort of sacred medicines and these rituals. So we don't have that anymore, and that's a big missing piece.
I think there is a human code. So it doesn't matter whether you go to Africa, whether you go to South America, whether you go to Asia. Left to our own devices, in the same way a mother knows she needs to nurture her child, we're going to develop certain systems. And I think a tribe setup is probably the way that we're supposed to live, in about 150 people or whatever. I think that we instinctively create those types of societies. What's happened is somewhere along the line is someone's come along and said, no, we want to concentrate power in the fewest number of people as possible so that we can take control. And we are living in a society that is very false and very artificial and not natural to the human being. So therefore, we're trying to use our human code to try and live a certain way, and we can't because the way that it's organised is messed up.
And to remember who we are.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. But if the system is all messed up, then how can we be in alignment with ourselves and with the way that we live? Because we can't live the way we're trying to live. It's like
we're not in harmony with the system. We're battling against the system constantly.
Yeah, disharmony is caused by the system. So we're trying to be in alignment, but we can't. We're trying to be in alignment, but we can't.
We have to break away from the system. We might not be able to do it straight away, but bit by bit, small steps, I suppose, we need to break away. Because I think cities were built to bring everyone in. Once they got control of the resource, let's say coal, they brought everyone in to work at that coal mine. I think we went to see that coal mine. It's in Wales. And you could see that the whole community was built around that coal mine, owned by one family. And so everyone had to come, people came from far afield to come and work there because they designed the monetary system. So they built these cities, and then people come to the cities to make a living and convince them this is the way. And once they get trapped in the city, it's almost like you can't leave. And they're trying to bring people in this idea of cities when we should be going out back into nature.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do you think that cities are artificial?
Yes, I think so. I think they're very... I mean, it's very hard to say when they first came about. There's obviously the Roman Empire and other things like that. But I think generally there were more people living outside of cities in the past, and not so distant past. I think more and more we've become industrialised over the years and things like that. It's very hard to know when and where because this information is so convoluted from the past, really. Yeah.
So when did things change, right? Like we're talking about the whole tribal system, and like people used to live in tribes of about 150 people per tribe. What do we think actually happened to make that change to get us to the point where we're all living in cities now? How did this happen? What do you think?
I suppose you'd start with the Romans maybe, because before, it goes way back. Babylon, I think, was the first. But then again, who knows? We're fed a version of history which may or may not be correct. Maybe there were large gatherings of people that did actually work as well back in the day. Because they had cities back then, didn't they?
Well, it could be like there's sets of different tribes, but actually this is one big sort of region.
Yeah. Maybe it's more a system rather than an amount of people. It's a mindset, a certain type of mindset.
And the feeling within, looking within, as we're talking about, it's an anti-human feeling that I get when I'm out there and I look at the sort of constructs. It doesn't feel natural to me when I see these rigid lines and traffic lights and antennas and and on it goes. And you look at, even here I can see like these little cages and bars. The whole thing is an anti-human, non-organic, moving away from nature energy that's behind it. That's so clear when you're in tune with your knowingness. It's not who we are.
It's interesting.
It's not stuff.
It feels constricting.
Constriction. We are not the architects behind this.
No.
This building feels like it's a really beautiful old building, and there's probably amazing energy in this space. So what have they done? They put these bars on the outside of all these windows, and it's like
They built a children's play centre. The play area has become much more metallic and brutal.
That's true.
So a little child is already imprisoned and seen.
It's very metallic and very grey. A lot of the tube stations now,
Bars everywhere.
very metallic and grey.
Much more restricted movement in school. Kids are not allowed to go out at lunchtime. The kids used to go out at lunch break freely. Some schools had no uniform. Now they've got the uniform, homogenous kids. Lanyards around their neck, got to wear the one coloured bag, line up.
And that's not our natural state. So whatever's guiding that in the unseen is very far removed from what we are.
Where's your mask? They're shouting at them. Get a mask. 2 meters. Literally like that.
Is that still occurring in schools at the moment?
No, but this was just the same people.
We're about to get up. I need to head to the school.
It's the same people in charge.
Let's go, man.
The staff is more or less the same. It's the same people who were there doing that are still there now.
Through conditioning again.
Going back to what you were saying, about when did it start? There is some information that's coming to light about the different sort of branches of the human family, if you like. So you've got the work of my dowsing teacher, Maria Wheatley, who published a book recently about the long skull people of the UK.
About the elongated skulls that you see.
People. And even when you look in old books about archaeology in the United Kingdom, they talk about ichthyophallic skull types, which they were small people with very narrow faces and elongated skulls. And apparently, the kind of architecture that they created was long barrows. So when you see the long barrows, say in Wiltshire, West Kennet Long Barrow, these were constructed by the long skull people, and apparently they preceded the beaker culture that came in later, And when the beakers came in, I think it was around 2500 BC, they got rid of that kind of tribal more. They didn't have boundaries, they didn't have, this is my land, this is your land. And at that point they can see that there was a big change, that they started to divide up land. They decided to, have agriculture, we own this field, this belongs to us, and they started to war with the Longheads. And you've got a sort of a genocide that happened. And they were all some of these mounds are absolutely filled with the skulls of these people that had been basically wiped out. So it's interesting that it could be something to do with, genetics as well, that they would predispose people to being into conflict and warring with each other. So there's a little bit of evidence coming to light, I think, about the fact that, we are, brain sizes, shapes. It's a bit of a tricky subject to get into because, it sort of suggests
there's
that
not much known about it as well.
But whatever, I think, whatever the brain size is or the head shapes or whatever it may be, that's ultimately not who we are or ever have been. That's just the headset, the virtual reality headset, so to speak. It's the energy within that ultimately is what is driving us and who we really are. And I think if you identify with all of those labels of race and your job or your title, or I'm from this country or that country, and you buy into that, you're taking seriously this reality, and you're conforming to limitation. And that's where the seeds of this war within are sown. But when you understand,
we've all got those genetics within us, haven't we? It's all come through. We're a big mishmash of all of those cultures, so we've all got that ability within us.
Yeah, but I found that in my experience, genetics and all this is gone. It's not in tune with me. I could be whatever genetic I want to be. That's how I genuinely feel. That's how I genuinely operate now. And that's again because it's now driven from within, and whatever I can identify with any culture at any time because I remember and I click and I feel and
because every genetic says that certain genes can be turned on or off depending on how you're thinking or how you're sort of vibrating again. Yeah. So therefore, genetics, DNA, how important is that really in terms of living as we are now? But one of the things that I wanted to come back to when you were talking about the heads. Oh gosh, I've forgotten it now. This happens to me every time. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, never mind.
But it's interesting.
Oh no, I remember. So what I was going to say was about what I wanted to ask you actually. First thing was, so if we focus primarily on the individual, does that mean that historically what's happened, does that not matter so much? In terms of what's led us to being in the situation now, that where all power has been centralised and everything?
I think you can learn and gain a lot of information from what's happened, but ultimately, there's so much you already know. If you tune into your feeling, you can work it out. You can feel. I was talking about earlier when I came back via Beijing in 2020, January, where I didn't have a clue what was going on. I was coming from Myanmar, off the beaten track, and suddenly I'm in Beijing, 2020, in the hype. We're like, what's going on? But the intuition and the feeling just figured everything out very, very quickly and instinctually. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you get in tune with that and the more you put in the work to get rid of those things that are trying to crush that, you figure and feel everything out, what's working out, what's right, what's wrong, you just know. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that that's straightforward and easy to attain, and it requires a lot of work, but it's all within, regardless of history or whatever. Yes, on a 5 sense level, I look into the history, I look into all of that, and I study, I gain information, and I love that, and that empowers, adds more strength. But ultimately, the actions, the energy, that's what it's all about to me.
So the solution has to be coming from us and take an individual approach.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
Because you can't how can you have an impact out there if you're not in check, if you're corrupted and you're there? You're not going to have that impact that you desire.
It goes back to what we were saying on camera at the beginning about all of that responsibility, and I like your podcast because you always bring it back to your own responsibility. And as human beings, we've got to, our consciousness we've got to get our consciousness to expand to a certain level before we can solve these problems. And it's by doing that that's bringing the responsibility back
I agree.
to ourselves.
I 100% agree, but there are going to be people out there who are watching this who are thinking, how does me taking personal responsibility for my vibration, how is that going
And
to
your
stop the
actions, your
bankers?
everyday actions, not just vibration,
But how is that
everything.
going to stop the bankers from consolidating their power, from these this tribal society that doesn't believe in the land being owned by anybody, and these people coming along tricking them and taking over their land? How is it going to stop that? This is the question that people are going to ask.
I think that's the crux of this, isn't it? Because people can't see how their own little bit of their decision, we have a decision every day that we make about the right or the wrong decision for us. You know, it could be whether we make mistakes, and then we're always sort of navigating our way through, trying to be the best that we can be. But there are a lot of people that are missing that moral sense, and they think, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
It really doesn't. You know, nobody's going to see that. It's about my trainers. It's about what I'm projecting to the world. It's about my ego. It's about what it's about what I own.
Yeah.
They can't see the point of that.
That's where the attention's going, isn't it?
Really important point that you're making. But I think in our community, we've got used to the idea of how vibration works, and a lot of people, that's just like airy fairy nonsense.
I was
they
very
can't
much.
figure out the vibration thing.
I was very much vibration first, and I used to use the law of attraction, and it worked. The thing is, I'm not saying it didn't work. It does work, right?
Yeah.
However, what happened is there were things I was neglecting to see, things with my family, things with certain people that I was around, and because I neglected that and tried to focus purely on the vibration, I led myself into destructive situations. So for me now, I do both. I keep my vibration high, but I am not afraid to step into the dark side and be like, you know what, you need to back off.
Yeah.
Because I don't want somebody stealing my tribal ground because they're going to trick me out there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And we all know one of those people that
There's
suddenly
lots
goes,
of them.
I only allow good vibrations into my
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
I
No, I don't think that's what you're saying.
That's not what you're saying,
But we know there's
a lot
people.
of people have taken
Yes.
it.
So
It's spiritual bypassing, and
Yeah.
there's a big problem with that at the moment, and it's about trying to find that balance between the two things, the two poles.
Yeah.
Of like, yes, I do keep my vibration good, but I also don't want to deny the fact that I'm seeing someone perhaps who's in a hole. They need some compassion. They didn't bring it upon themselves because they're a rubbish vibrator. Do you know what I mean?
What a great term. If I meet someone with passion, you're a rubbish vibrator. You need to practice your vibration.
I get it. No, I get
They're
it.
like, oh well, you got yourself into this. You can get yourself out, and
There's a reason we have the
You
vibrate and the
created
left brain.
this.
We need to use both.
We need to do some vibration classes in
But I think probably people are going, it is all about that fact that the reason that people have all these difficulties is because they're always looking externally for self-help. They're looking for help externally and not looking within. And it's just the difficulties. We're not allowed from birth, because of everything that's happened to us, to look within. And so people can't even contemplate that. You see, they're always looking elsewhere, like I've got to go to that class to get a bit of motivation from that motivational speaker. I've got to go and see that hero of mine or heroine, and they let you down a couple of months later. But really, when you think about it, when you cut yourself, the body already is the healer. It already can heal itself. The scab comes and it protects itself and care. When the mum is pregnant, without the mum knowing anything what to do, the inside is the soul, if you want to call it, already knows how to sort it all out. So there's the proof that everything is being done. You know inside, it knows everything, but we are separated from it, cut off. That is the key battle. That's all it is. And the other people will not see it, but then the thing is, we can't go and try to change everybody. You can't do that. You've got to go within. It has to start within, because none of us are at full peace or anywhere near it. There's no such thing as being awake, let's be honest. It's maybe awakening, because we're always awake.
It's a process.
It's a process. We're aiming to keep going. We're not there by any. If anyone claims to be there, they've got to be something wrong with it.
Before we even get to vibration, and let's say for those that vibrations, hairy-fairy, let's get down to like the 5 sense level. There's a lot of people who are not putting in the action. So how can you expect to push back these bankers or whoever it is when you're eating the very crap that they're behind, right? What about the work? What about the physical training? Why aren't you sweating out those toxins and getting that body moving like it's meant to? You know, the crap that you're consuming, watching on TV, and the very people that are shitting on you, you're supporting them. You're consuming their products and their crap. So how can you expect when I'm watching BBC or I'm going to tune into that negative news, but now I'm against what's going on? There's so much work that we need to do physically and mentally in the five senses to get ourselves in optimal condition on a high level. And then you will see this crap get pushed back. In my life, these bankers don't come close to me. They don't fuck around with me. And a lot of that darkness and all of that crap that's around us, he knows, is like that to me now. And that's happened because the self-work that I've done, not even on a vibrational level, I haven't even gone to that level, just the physical and mental work, the cold showers, getting in the right nutrition and the good stuff, reducing a lot of that crap that we're bombarded with. And the more stronger we are, I've found, the more all of that crap gets pushed back, and they can't even touch you. Because it's like a bully. It's like a bully. A bully is ultimately...
stand up against them.
Yeah. So I'm in a good place because this cult has got respect for me now. It doesn't even want to come close to me. It's not even looking at me. It's like, listen, I don't want to come near this. Seriously.
That's about having that self-discipline.
Five sense level, put in the action, physical, mental, get to work, man. People know what they're doing, the crap that they're doing.
If you want to talk 5 sense level, we can go to Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. They're telling you, they said, Marion, Indiana Jones said to Marion, they're all tied up if you ever watched that film. That scene's almost telling you.
They said, don't look at it. Don't look at it. That's actually a beautiful point.
So get off your phone or
That's a beautiful point because we engage with a lot of their crap.
The attention, isn't it?
You're watching their very crap news. You're on their crappy social media things that they set up, battling on Twitter and bickering. You're on their very, you're consuming their very crap, and you don't have to. There's still enough choice that you don't have to.
The energy vampires are taking away our energy by getting our attention.
So there's a lot of excuses as well. Get to work, put in the work. You know what you need to do, people out there,
Be a piece of
messing around.
Isn't it? Can look at elsewhere.
Well, I would say for me, for the last 3 years, I've made a lot of excuses. Because I'm not at my most optimum when it comes to vibration, when it comes to the physical health and the mental health that I had previously had very high standards to hold myself to. And then I feel like the world is sort of beating me down a little bit, and I'm not holding myself to those standards anymore. And just yesterday, my friend Adam called me, and all of the stuff that you just said, he was like, "Come on, bro, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this." And he's given me a little program. And I started this morning. So I feel like you reiterating that just now is like saying to me, "Come on now, we really need to really get on."
It's fundamental, man. Because when I was on the marches, man, I looked around. I thought, man, a lot of incredible energy. That's just innate, the soul, the beauty, the love. But boy, a lot of these people are beaten down, man. Beaten down, and I know why from the years and the bombardment. But that's not to say that they can reverse a lot of that if they focus on that rather than focus externally. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, what is it that they don't want? A healthy, confident, empowered and strong population. That's harder to control.
So now
but let's say if you're in bad health and you're ill, then you're going to go to the NHS. You're going to probably give in and cave in and I better take their pharma meds and you start right.
So how did you get to where you are now then? I mean, how did you get to this point? What was the work that you did?
It's been a process, and first of all, it's self-respect. I remember even from school, I had a bit of this self-respect. I can't be a follower, I feel it. It was innate, but then stuff pulls you away and you're back into the limitation. But I kind of built on that more and had this self-respect and pride that I don't just bow down. It's not my natural state to bow down to crap. And I want to be the master of my own destiny. And then once you start thinking about that and tapping into it's everywhere, then you start attracting the right people around you, the right information starts coming towards you, start surrounding yourself with better people, and it starts growing and growing. And then there's a thirst, a desire to let me improve myself, let me be the better version I can be. And then there's so many examples from so many different fields that are screaming at you, get your act together. And then throwing myself out on the front line in 2020 in the outreach and activism, which I thought you don't want to see me putting out leaflets and stuff, but having that selflessness to go outside the schools in the most difficult conditions and circumstances and let go of me culture, and all these sort of experiences shape you. And what I've learned from that is even when there's a negative situation, there's actually a lot to learn from that, from those negative experiences that can actually strengthen you, make you even tougher going forward if you choose to look at it that way. And these are just some of the touching the surface of some of the things that have made a difference. And the world is the oyster and beyond from here and now. Honestly,
Sky's not the limit.
It's not. It really isn't.
There is no limit.
No limit. No.
Absolutely.
We don't even know our power, that's the thing. I mean, sometimes when you tap into it, the way things happen, the manifestation, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And look how we bounced off each other in recent times when we were apart and bickering when we was younger, but now we're egging each other on through our energy, not like, Ash, you must do this, or he's like, Naeem, you must do this, just energy. It's like, oh, no, I do that, Ash is doing that. We lift each other. And it's like a relationship. Like if I'm in a beaten down and thinking of bankers and all of this, and I'm in a relationship, what effect is that going to have on the partner? That's a great example of on a global level. She's not going to like have respect for me and think, oh yeah, and even though she'll love me and still try to, but if I'm in a better state and handling my business, as they say, I can feel there's more of a respect and a unity. It's like that picture in Vietnam of when the men and women came together to fight against the forces that were invading their territory, but it was the man and the woman coming together as both, solidly. But get yourself in check before you can attract that respect and that mutual appreciation, and handle your shit, make your bed in the early morning. All those little basics, man, makes a huge difference. Little discipline, man. If you're not disciplined, then no freedom. Discipline equals freedom.
But self-discipline,
not the discipline of the rigid control system.
Something you said just before, you were talking about when you cut yourself, the body heals it.
Yes.
Again, because there's a system, there's an organism, a self-healing organism, and if it's here in the micro, it will be there in the macro. So I'm thinking that the universe has got a way to lead us back to peace.
Yes.
Right? In the same way, this is peace of the body, harmony of the body, harmony out there. And I think what's happening is this constant push to get us to that place of harmony, and then something comes along to cut it again, to stop it from happening, stop it from happening. But I think there's such a massive, powerful momentum now that's going to lead us to that. And I think
but a lot of people are cutting themselves. A lot of people are cutting themselves. Look carefully first before you start, because if you say, oh, this force or this evil cult is what's doing it to me, you're giving them the power. That's a little me attitude. They've got the power over me. But if we look at our choices first, let's first look at our choices that we're making in real scrutiny. Be really honest with yourself and look at yourself in the mirror. Look at those choices first and foremost before everything's going to be hunky-dory, and look at those choices. A lot of those choices are feeding that very
But the reason why I'm saying that is because we're not globally, internationally, there is fraction, there is difficulty, there is war, there are people dying, there's this stuff that's happening. We're not. I don't want there to be disharmony in Palestine. I don't want there to be disharmony, in all of these places where there is war. So, and I don't want to sort of pretend that that's not happening. I want to look at ways that we can do something about it. But what I'm saying is, I feel like there is this massive push, where it's coming from the universe or Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it, for this massive healing to occur. And we're lucky to be here in this time and space because we're here to observe it and witness it and be a part of it. And I think that whatever it is that is causing that problem and those cuts, as we've described it, I think is losing its power. And I agree with you that we can do what we can do in order for ourselves, in order to keep ourselves in alignment, so that we're powerful beings and we're creating things for ourselves. But then, and in doing so, we're doing our part for the greater society. I just think it's important to also know what's happening without letting that impact our vibrations.
No, but when you know,
when you know that there's a truth that people are not hearing, or that there's a missing piece that they need to know, that would be empowering. So, doing all the things that you're saying in order to be able to give that truth. And clearly, because I think like you were saying about the school kids, we're wired for that. We come in with that.
Yes.
We recognise it. And it's like, oh, this is what I've been waiting to hear. So sometimes maybe that can be the thing that causes, because half the time, these conflicts that we see, and all of those horrible, the poor innocent people on the ground level that are having all of that, that with what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and all of that distress, and
it's designed to distress us as well. They're putting it all out there for us.
We're manipulated to kind of to see that and to take one side or the other side, and it's like
division again.
It's division again, and it's like keeping
And
that
fear and low vibration.
Yes. It's coming back to the unity again, isn't it?
We don't know. We don't know fully any of this. There's so much stuff. TikTok telling kids this, and they say this is what's happening. Someone else got another. There's thousands of videos. We don't really know because we're not there.
So what do we do then with that?
So what I'm saying is we've got to be very careful. They don't get too attached because first of all, that is trying to. Who's putting out this footage? It's all coming from the same people who are trying to control us. So we've got to detach ourselves from all of that because we don't know any of that. It's not our experience. Seeing a video is not our experience unless we're there on the ground. So we've got to be so careful that we don't get attached to that because we don't know what is the truth. Because there's thousands of videos coming out with saying this is happening, some saying this is the same with Ukraine, and suddenly that's switched off now, and then there's a war in Congo, but no one knows about that.
Yeah.
I think it still comes back to we've got to first of all focus on ourselves. I really think that that's the most important thing because all of that stuff we don't know truthfully what's going on there.
And a lot of that is a reflection of what's going on out there, what's really happening within and around you. And look at it, as I was saying earlier, as an ocean. That it's an ocean of energy that is connected from here to Palestine to across the globe, wherever. And if there's a much more purer, more powerful energy embodiment in every form that's going out into that ocean, that in itself is having an impact. And I've seen that have an impact just in close people that have been around me in recent times.
I do get that. I understand that.
So first that, and that's going to have a bigger impact on whatever's going on around the world when that's in order.
Prayer, there must be something about prayer that people are always talking about prayer. We must have, when we congregate and we pray, or just positive thoughts. Do we have positive thoughts about people? We should have positive thoughts. We should always pray in some way, whatever. Not about religion.
Grateful gratitude.
Yeah, grateful gratitude. I wish the best for my
love,
families, friends,
experience for life, love of life.
Yeah, that does transcend, and every thought has energy. If you have a positive thought, it has an energy. When you smile, you have a certain energy. When you give out with love,
it's infectious.
A certain energy, and that must surely spread to people around. I think that's very underestimated.
And I don't think it must, it does.
Yeah.
Feel it in, I think it's common sense when you see it happen every day.
It changes the energy of the room, for sure.
And I think that's why they target children, not just because they're worried about what they're going to become later. They also know that these children, they're very pure. New in this, they're pure. Yeah. They've come from, wherever they've come from. The purity of that soul is so new, and they're very afraid of those children.
Yeah.
Because children, when they come, there's so much how a lot of adults used to be, have forgotten that when they were young, they hear parents saying how they did all this rebellious stuff. But look how you're treating your children. You're treating your children like you're abusers, really, sorry to say. You're getting them injected, and you're getting them to follow this system. And when you were young, you were rebellious and you drove a motorbike without a helmet, back in '78. And now you're forcing the kids to be, in straitjackets, literally. And so that's so sad. But I think the children have that, like I said, that innate purity from their soul. And they're so afraid of that because they want them to give the experience of this time here that is a very false experience. That is taken away from
and therefore set a great example to that new generation, because they haven't had many good examples, who are. But when they do, they react off that and they feed off that, and you can see it. And again, otherwise the cycle goes on and on. We've seen it, the Palestine-Israel conflict. It's going. God, was it 60 years? I don't know how long now. So it will go on and on unless we come back to the roots. Come back to the core, and let's set an example. Let that energy spread, like you guys have, and especially this man who I know. That gave us that courage that he had, infected us to be the better versions. Get out there, let go of the fear, and domino effect. It's a domino effect every time. So embody it first and foremost if you want to get somewhere.
We're kind of coming to the end of the podcast now, so I just want to go around the table and ask everybody for their solution. What can we do to create peace? Just one thing.
I would say connect with your higher self and follow the breadcrumbs, basically, where it leads you. And do the best that you can be as a being, as a conscious being. To project that out. Yeah.
Mr. Bilbert.
Say no more.
Look within, listen to the answers that will be provided to you,
and follow the path that is set out for you, because the universe has the best intentions for you and for humanity, and it's just for you to learn to walk in the path that was destined for you.
Can I ask you a question on that? What about these people that are doing things that are destructive? Is that their path? Are they meant to be doing that?
Possibly. I think we all have necessary lessons in our life. Not all of them are going to be easy. We may have to make certain mistakes and overcome certain challenges in order to learn and develop spiritually, emotionally, physically. So your destructive and negative behaviors may be something you have to work through in order to overcome them and to learn. Some of us learn through harsh lessons. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people. I learn. People may give me the advice over and over again. I won't adopt that advice until I kind of experience an extreme situation that helps me overcome whatever that challenge may be. Right. So
maybe that nemesis is there to trigger you to be the person that you are as well.
Yeah. That's what I think. Ash?
I think that really agreeing with what everyone said so far, but we shouldn't be so attached to this 5 sense reality. So I've got a quote that I think it sort of sums it all up. It says, "This place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief." So it's about letting go, I think. As harsh as it might sound to some people, but I still think that this is not real, this world that we're in. It's just an experience, because then we're gone, then off to the next life.
Who's
this is a quote of Rumi.
Oh, it's a Rumi quote.
Yeah, and I think you used it in your film too. So yeah. Also, Naeem reminded me of that quote because he used it quite beautifully in his film. That already got me very attracted to watch the rest of it and see it through.
What's the name of the film?
Gods of Their Own Religion.
Where can people find it?
We've got a screening coming up this Wednesday. I don't know if it's going to go out by then in Soho, at the Karma Sanctum Soho. And next year we're going to have a run of special screenings across the country and internationally as well. And it's all being self-distributed with our team and all the people that have got behind it. It was shot during lockdown against government rules back in March, April 2020. And it just very much captured some of the internal battles within of that time on a very grandiose yet complex scale. A real passion project, something that I'm really proud of, and also it's part of a trilogy of films to come. Lots more to explore now, and so much evolvement since those times.
And what's your idea to create peace?
Firstly, I just want to say, like, everything that these guys just summarized there, and is, there's not much more to add to that. These guys are absolutely spot on, and I really resonate with that. I think just to add on top of that, I'd say be the master of your destiny. Stop giving your power away to other corrupt sources, and you have the tools, if you choose to look at it, to enable yourself to do that. And make the right choices. You know what to do. And don't beat yourself up if you have ups and downs. It's all part of it. But if you can, be that master of your destiny, you will find that will have a ripple effect around you and create more peace and positivity around the world that you live in, and infect other people. That's what I would say. What's coming to my heart at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. I would just like to add. Don't comply with tyranny, and vote with your wallet and your feet. So say no to things that are not in your highest alignment, not in your, it feels wrong to you, feels off with your instinct, intuition, and vote with your wallet. Don't pay for things that don't use your money towards things that are going to create that cage for yourself. But yeah, so thank you everybody for coming and being part of this panel podcast. I will see you again next time on Heart Nation. So from me and from everybody here, we bid you adieu. Thank you very much.
That was powerful, man. That was powerful. What a great conversation. I've learned so much. I feel so motivated.
Yeah.
But it's like times what we need to do.